The sun burned hot over the green jungle moon of Tyro 7. Everything was wet leaves, trees, even the air itself. Inside a small research outpost, one human worked alone. His name was Jace. He was an engineer sent to fix a broken power core. No team, no backup, just tools, metal walls, and silence. Except for the sound of fans blowing and machines buzzing, Jace wiped his forehead. Sweat dripped from his brow to his neck. His shirt stuck to his back. The heat made it hard to think, but he kept working. He didn't know that someone was watching. Him, someone hiding in the thick green shadows just beyond the base. She crouched low behind a wide tree. Her skin shimmered slightly under the light of 2 moons. Her long silver-green hair fell down her back like flowing water. Her name was Zairi. She had been watching the human for 3 days now. Zairi belonged to a secret alien race. They lived deep in the jungle and stayed far from humans. They believed outsiders were dangerous, but Zairi was curious. And when she saw Jace for the first time, something inside her began to change. It started small, just warmth in her chest. But every time she saw him move, saw him lift heavy tools, heard him grunt or wipe sweat from his face, that warmth grew stronger. It spread through her body like fire. She didn't understand why. She had seen other aliens before, but this one. His scent was different. She could smell it from the trees when the wind blew her way. It made her heart race and her skin tingle. She had never felt this way before. Zairi didn't know it yet, but her kind had an ancient instinct. Their bodies could sense strong partners through smell, and human sweat triggered something deep in her blood. Something wild, something old, something powerful inside the station. Jace stood up and stretched. He pulled off his gloves and walked to the water unit. He didn't know that Zairi had moved closer. He didn't see her glowing eyes through the tall grass. He didn't hear her soft breath. She watched the sweat slide down his neck, her hands shook, her knees felt weak, but then Jace turned quickly. Zairi vanished back into the trees. Heart pounding, she pressed her back against the bark. What was she doing? She knew her tribe would be angry if they found out. No one was allowed to go near humans, but her body was already changing. She could feel it like heat rising from inside. Jace looked around the area. He thought he heard something, a whisper, or maybe a branch breaking, but the jungle was always noisy. He shook his head and went back inside. He had work to finish. Later that night, Zairi climbed a tree near the base. She could see into his window. He was sitting on the floor, shirtless, reading from a screen and eating dried food. The lights inside were soft. He looked calm, tired, alone. Zairi pressed her hand against her chest. Her heart was beating fast again. She didn't know why she wanted to be near him, or why her body felt warmer every hour. She looked down at her fingers. They shimmered slightly. Her breathing was deep and slow. She was changing, and it scared her. But she didn't run. She stayed there all night, watching him sleep, feeling her body heat rise again every time he turned in bed. The jungle was still, but inside Zairi, something wild had started, and it wasn't going to stop. The next morning, Jace woke up early, still tired but focused. The jungle outside was loud with strange animal calls and buzzing insects. He poured water over his head to stay cool. Sweat ran down his chest again as the heat returned fast. He didn't notice the soft footprints near the edge of the base, but someone else did. Zairi watched him again, this time from behind a broken wall near the trees. Her breathing was slow, but her heart raced. Every time she smelled the air and caught the scent of his sweat, the heat inside her grew worse. She had never felt this way before. Her body tingled all over, her skin shimmered brighter than usual, and her thoughts were harder to control. Every time she blinked, she saw his face, the way his muscles moved, the sound of his voice when he talked to himself while working. She crouched low in the tall grass, closer than ever, only a few meters away now. Close enough to hear his breath, close enough to feel the warmth of the machines he worked on. Her body reacted again, stronger this time. A wave of energy passed through her like a soft shock. She gasped quietly, afraid he might hear, but he didn't. Jace was too focused on fixing a cracked pipe. He wiped sweat from his forehead with a cloth and tossed it onto the floor near the open wall. The wind blew gently, carrying the scent to Ziri. That was the moment it happened. Something inside her snapped awake. Her knees gave out, and she dropped to the ground. Her body was burning from the inside. She pressed her hands into the dirt, trembling, trying to stay quiet, but the feeling was too strong. She felt her skin grow warmer, her breath heavier. Parts of her body shifted, reshaping slowly, soft changes. At first slightly fuller curves, more defined lines across her figure. It was like her body was preparing itself for something ancient. She had heard the elders whisper about the heat before, a secret condition her species rarely spoke of. It only happened when one found a perfect match. Someone with the right scent, the right strength, someone not from their world. Ziri had never believed it was real, until now, and now it was happening to her. She crawled back quietly through the grass, her heart pounding, her skin glowing faintly. In the shadows she needed time to think, time to breathe, but the heat inside her wasn't stopping. It was growing stronger with every passing minute. Back inside the base, Jace stood and looked around again. That strange feeling returned like someone was near. He walked outside and scanned the trees. Nothing, but the air felt strange, charged. He picked up the cloth he had thrown and wiped his face again. He didn't know it had caused something wild and powerful to awaken. Later that night, Jace checked the security sensors. One motion alert had triggered briefly, just outside the east wall. He reviewed the camera, but all he saw was the tall grass moving slightly, and maybe, just maybe, glowing eyes for half a second. He paused the screen, stared hard, then shook his head. Probably an animal, he muttered, but part of him wasn't so sure anymore. Meanwhile, deep in the jungle, Ziri sat under a giant glowing tree. Her hands were shaking, her lips slightly parted. She stared at her own body in confusion. The changes were clearer now. She was becoming more like him, more shaped, more defined, more human in form. But not human, something else. She couldn't return to her people like this. They would know right away. They would punish her for going near a human. They feared what might happen if one of them went into heat for an outsider. Now she knew why. Because once it started, it didn't stop. And now it was too late. She had smelled him, and now her body was changing forever. She looked back toward the human base, the soft light in the window still glowed. He was in there, working, sweating, unaware, and she couldn't stay away much longer. The jungle was silent that night. Even the wind seemed to stop. Jace stood just outside the base, checking a broken motion sensor. He held a flashlight in one hand and a scanner in the other. Sweat rolled down his neck again. The heat hadn't gone away. If anything, it felt heavier. The air was thick, like something was waiting to happen. He crouched to fix a loose wire. Then he heard it. A breath. Not his, soft, close. He turned fast, shining his light into the trees. That's when he saw her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But she was real. A figure standing just at the edge of the shadows. Tall, slim, glowing skin like starlight. Her hair flowed down her back like silver fire. Her eyes, wide and glowing green, were locked on him. He raised his light slowly. "Hello?" he said. She didn't move. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Still nothing, but something in her eyes shifted. A mix of fear and need. She took one small step forward, then another. Her legs looked shaky, like walking was suddenly hard. Jace lowered the light a little so it wouldn't blind her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "I'm human. My name is Jace." That's when she froze. The sound of his voice hit her like a wave. Ziri stood completely still, her breath caught in her throat, her body trembled. She had waited so long to hear him speak directly to her. Now that it felt too real, too powerful. Her heart pounded. Her skin shimmered brighter. The heat that had been building inside her since she first saw him suddenly surged. It was like fire and lightning at the same time, rushing through her chest, her stomach, her legs. Jace took a step toward her. She stumbled back one step, almost falling, her hand grabbing a branch to stay up. "Hey, it's okay," he said, holding out his hand. Ziri looked at it, then at his face. His scent reached her again, stronger now, carried by the night air. Her body responded instantly. Her legs weakened. Her lips parted slightly. She didn't understand why it felt this way, why her whole body wanted to move closer. Jace noticed her glowing skin and the way she struggled to stay upright. "Are you sick?" he asked. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her throat felt tight. She hadn't spoken in days, maybe more. All she could do was stare at him. Her body was reacting so strongly now, it was hard to breathe. He stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a wild animal. "Can you understand me?" he asked. She nodded, just once. He smiled gently. "That's good. Are you from this planet?" She shook her head. "Do you need help?" She didn't move. She didn't know how to answer that. What kind of help could he give her now? Her body was already changing. The fire inside her was growing with every second. She stood there breathing his scent. A long pause stretched between them. Then Jace said, "Do you want to come inside? It's safe." Ziri blinked, her hands clenched. She felt her heart scream yes. But her legs wouldn't move. She was frozen. Not from fear, but from something deeper. The heat was too strong. The feelings were too much. Jace watched her carefully. He noticed the way her eyes shimmered, the way she kept glancing at his chest, where sweat soaked through his shirt. It was like something about him was affecting her. He dropped his voice. "It's okay. You're not alone." That's when something broke. Ziri took one small, slow step forward, then another. Each step was harder than the last, as if her body fought against itself. But she kept walking, slowly, carefully, until she was only a few feet away. Up close, Jace could see her clearly now. Her features were delicate, alien, but strangely beautiful. Her body glowed faintly, as if powered by something inside her. And her breathing deep, shaky, like someone holding back a storm. He didn't understand what was happening. But he didn't look away, and neither did she. Ziri wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but her voice still wouldn't come out. So she just stood there, looking into his eyes, feeling the heat rise higher and higher. She knew something was changing inside her, something big. And after hearing his voice, there was no stopping it now. The night felt heavier than usual. Clouds passed over the twin moons, and the jungle around the station grew silent, like it was holding its breath. Inside the base, Jace sat at the table, looking at the empty seat across from him. She had been there just minutes ago, glowing, trembling, eyes full of something wild and soft at the same time. But now she was gone. He didn't know why she ran. Maybe fear, maybe confusion, maybe both. But her scent still lingered in the air, faint but sweet, like warm rain and crushed leaves. Jace leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling, confused and restless. He didn't understand what she wanted or what she was becoming. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. Out in the jungle, far from the humans' walls, Ziri ran barefoot across moss and soft earth, her heart pounding louder than the wind. Her skin glowed brighter now, not just from the moons, but from inside. Her body was overheating, changing faster with every breath. The moment he spoke to her, the fire inside her had exploded. Her legs had nearly given out. Her fingers trembled. Her chest burned, and her thoughts shattered into waves of heat. She stumbled into a grove of tall, crystal-leaf trees and dropped to her knees, gasping for air. Her hands pressed against her chest. Something shifted beneath her skin, smooth, slow, but impossible to ignore. Her curves swelled gently, shaping in new ways. Her breath caught. The change was no longer hidden. She looked down at her hands. The glowing lines running through her veins had grown thicker, pulsing like light trapped under glass. Her hips ached as they stretched wider. Her skin sparkled with fine patterns she had never seen before, glowing softly like living paint. She was transforming. Not just in heat now, but evolving. Her tribe had warned about this, that the body could betray the mind. That scent alone could awaken something ancient. Ziri had never believed it. Until now, she tried to fight it. But the more she remembered the sound of his voice, the more the change deepened. She curled into herself and shut her eyes tight. But even in the dark, she saw him. That human, Jace, his sweat, his strength, his scent. Her body answered every memory with more heat. Back at the base, Jace couldn't sleep. He walked to the security console and opened the motion recordings. A red alert had blinked just an hour ago. Zone 3, South Perimeter. He played it. The screen showed the jungle floor, then movement, a fast figure. He paused the frame. Her glowing form ran past the camera. And in the moment her face turned, he saw it. She looked different. He zoomed in, confused. She looked more human, but not fully. Her body shape had changed, subtle but clear. Her hair was longer, brighter, her figure more defined. He stared at the screen, heart beating faster. "What's happening to you?" he whispered. Hours passed. The sky turned deep purple as dawn approached. Ziri finally stopped shaking. She sat with her back against a tree, breathing slowly. Her body had settled. For now, but the change was not done. It was still moving inside her, like a slow flame that would never fully die. She looked at her reflection in a pool of water. She barely recognized herself. Her eyes were bigger, her lips fuller, her neck longer. Her form now carried more softness, more shape. She touched her face carefully. Was this really still her? She turned toward the base again, far in the distance. Her heart pulled her there, not just curiosity now. Something more. Something stronger. He had started this, but she wasn't afraid anymore. Inside the base, Jace sat at the entrance, still waiting, still watching the jungle. He didn't know why. Maybe he hoped she'd come back. Maybe he needed to know she was okay. Maybe it was something deeper. Something he couldn't explain. The wind blew gently through the trees. The leaves whispered. A soft shimmer moved between the shadows. Something was coming. Something had changed. And this time, it wasn't just a visitor in the night. It was someone new, someone born in heat, fire, and scent. And she was walking toward him. Jace was asleep in the chair near the front door. His head leaned back and his breathing was soft. The night had been long and strange, full of thoughts he didn't understand. But his body finally gave in to rest. The station was quiet. The machines hummed. The jungle outside seemed calm. Until something hit the ground hard. Iku woke up instantly. The door alarm flashed red. Motion detected. He grabbed his light and ran outside, expecting an animal or maybe a fallen branch. But what he found made him freeze. It was her. Ziri lay on the ground, breathing fast. Her arms were scratched, her knees bruised, and her glow was dim. She was hurt. But her eyes were locked on him, wide and full of something more than pain. Fear. Jace rushed to her side. "What happened? Are you okay?" She shook her head, trying to speak. Her lips moved, but the words wouldn't come out. She looked behind her, toward the jungle, and then back at him. Her hands clutched his arm tightly. Then, through the trees, came a sound. Not animal. Not wind. Voices, strange and sharp, like metal, scraping against stone, low growls and high clicks. Dozens of them. Jace stood up slowly and scanned the trees. He couldn't see anything yet, but something was out there. Something watching. Ziri tried to pull herself up. her body still weak from the transformation, still fighting the heat inside. She grabbed Jace's hand and pointed toward the door. She needed shelter. Now he lifted her into his arms without thinking and rushed back inside, sealing the door behind him. The moment it clicked shut, a strange howl echoed through the jungle. "What are they?" Jace asked, breathing hard. Ziri sat up on the floor, her hands glowing slightly. She reached for the tablet on the table and quickly drew a symbol, a circle, with sharp lines cutting through it. Then she pointed to herself. "They're your people?" Jace asked. She nodded. "And they're coming for you?" Her hand shook as she nodded again. Jace didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. She had run from them. And now they wanted her back. Or worse. He pulled up the external cameras. Shapes moved between the trees. Tall, glowing. Eyes, sharp limbs. At least 10, maybe more. They didn't move like hunters. They moved like executioners. Ziri stared at the screen, her face pale. She had known this would happen. Her body had changed too much. Her scent was different now. Her energy had shifted. Her tribe would see her as broken, no longer pure. They believed humans were dangerous. And any one of their own touched by a human was a threat. She wasn't one of them anymore. Jace looked at her. "They want to hurt you, don't they?" She looked down. That was the answer. He stood up, checked the weapons locker. Not much, just a plasma cutter and a flare gun. This station wasn't built for fights. It was for science, not war. But he wasn't going to let them take her. Outside. The jungle grew louder. Strange signals bounced off the sensors. The air buzzed. A high-pitched scream shot through the trees, followed by silence. Then came the first bang on the door. Ziri jumped. Jace raised the plasma cutter. "I don't know who they are," he said, "but they're not getting you." Ziri stood beside him, her body glowing brighter now. The heat inside her wasn't just heat anymore. It was power. Her fingers lit up with soft energy. Her back straightened. Her fear turned to fire. Another bang hit the door. Then another. The metal shook. Jace looked at her. "Can you fight?" She nodded slowly. "Good, because I don't run." Ziri closed her eyes. She breathed deep, steadying herself. Her transformation was almost complete. The pain was still there, but the weakness was gone. Something new had replaced its strength. Will. Flame. The door shook again. This time harder. A voice spoke in her language, harsh, angry, a command. One final warning. Ziri didn't move. Jace looked at her. "What did they say?" She opened her eyes. "They said," she whispered, voice shaking but clear for the first time, "Give me up. Or die." Jace stared at her in shock. Not because of what she said, but because she finally spoke. And outside, her people were ready to kill. But so was she. The power inside the station flickered as another hit slammed into the door. Lights blinked, then steadied. Jace gripped the plasma cutter tighter, his knuckles white. Ziri stood beside him, glowing like she held a star under her skin. Her eyes were locked on the door, but her hands trembled. Not from fear, something else. The heat that had been growing inside her was now alive, humming like a second heartbeat. She had never been touched before, not like this. Not by a human, not while in the middle of the change. Her people considered contact during the heat a sacred and dangerous thing. But now, here in this moment, surrounded by enemies, she felt something deeper rising. A choice. Jace turned to her. His voice was low. "If they break in, we don't run. We fight together." Ziri's eyes softened for a second. Her lips parted to speak, but her breath caught. He reached out, placed his hand gently on her arm. And in that instant, everything changed. Her body pulsed once like lightning under her skin. Her knees buckled. The heat she had tried to control burst free, and the glow around her exploded in brightness. A wave of energy shot out from her, strong enough to rattle the windows. Jace stumbled. Back, not from fear but shock, Ziri gasped, dropping to her knees. Her fingers dug into the floor. Her body burned from the inside, but it wasn't painful. It was awakening. Her transformation had reached its peak, and it needed release. She looked up at him, and her voice came out breathless. "It's too much." Jace crouched beside her. "What is?" "You," she whispered. "Your touch, your scent. It broke the last part of me." He stared at her, stunned. Her body shimmered with new lines, her form completely changed. She was still alien, but now she carried something more. Her shape had adapted. Her eyes were clearer. Her presence stronger. She looked reborn. The banging on the door turned into pounding, heavy tools now. They were trying to break in. Ziri stood slowly, the glow around her becoming a shield. She no longer trembled. Her voice was firm. "I'm ready." Jace moved beside her. "For what?" She didn't answer. She stepped forward, lifted her hand, and placed her palm against the metal door. The glow traveled from her fingers into the wall. In seconds, strange symbols appeared across the steel, her language, her energy. Then the door pulsed once and fell silent. The banging stopped. A long silence followed. Then came a sound Jace didn't expect. Screams outside. One of the attackers ran into the trees, on fire. Another dropped to the ground, stunned. The others shouted in panic. Ziri had done something to the door, something that pushed her power out like a wave. She looked at Jace, breathing fast. "They will come again. All of them. You can stop them?" She nodded once. "But not alone." He stepped forward. "Then you won't be alone." She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were hot but soft. "When you touched me, I became something new. Not just your scent, your presence. It woke me, completed me." Jace didn't know what to say. He had never seen anything so powerful, or so alive. "Is that why they're afraid of you now?" She lowered her hand. "They think I've gone too far, that I'm broken. You don't look broken to me." She smiled, small, sad, and bright. Then the jungle roared again, this time louder. More were coming. Ziri turned to the door, her glow rising. "If they break through, I won't hold back." Jace stood beside her, holding the plasma cutter like a sword. "Good, let them see what you've become." Together, they waited for the next strike. But now, she wasn't just a girl running from her people. She was fire. She was change. And the moment he touched her, that fire was born. The jungle shook as the enemy closed in. Heavy steps, strange howls, weapons crackling with energy. Jace stood inside the station beside Ziri, heart pounding. The glow around her was brighter than ever now. Not just light power. Her eyes burned with it. Her body had changed fully, and there was no hiding what she had become. She could feel them outside, her people, her old life. She knew each sound, each voice, but they didn't feel like home anymore. Her body didn't belong to them now. Her soul didn't answer their call. Something inside her had shifted, and the center of it was him. Jace watched the door. He didn't say anything, but his presence calmed her. His scent still reached her, still stirred the heat inside, but now, that heat was more than instinct, it was choice. It was hers. He had given her strength without knowing. She had changed because of him. And now she had to make a decision that would define everything. The station lights dimmed as the power surged again. The outer gates finally gave in with a loud crack. The attackers were at the door. Moments away, Ziri stepped forward. She raised her glowing hands, the energy around her swirling like a storm. She looked back at Jace one last time. "You need to stay behind me." Jace didn't move. Not this time. She stared at him. The human who didn't run. The one who didn't look at her like she was strange or broken. He had treated her like someone who mattered. And that changed everything. The door exploded inward. A group of tall, sharp figures rushed in her people. but now they looked like shadows. They wore armor made from jungle bone and crystal. Their eyes locked on her. And they stopped. She didn't bow. She didn't speak. She just stood there glowing. No longer one of them. One stepped forward, his voice hard. "You are unclean. Touched by a human. Changed. You must return and be purified." Ziri lifted her chin. "No," another hissed. "You would defend the outsider against your own blood?" She didn't answer. She simply moved in front of Jace. Her arms spread slightly, her glowing body pulsing with heat and power. The leader raised his hand to strike. Ziri's power exploded before his arm. Moved out a wave of light and fire knocked the first wave off their feet. The walls shook. Jace shielded his eyes. When the light faded, Ziri stood at the center of the room, her hands smoking, her hair floating from the force. One attacker tried to rise. Jace stepped in and swung his plasma cutter, striking the figure. Across the side. He didn't have alien powers, but he had fire in his chest now too. Ziri looked at him, then back at the others. "You came to take me, but I've already chosen." They stopped moving. Chosen what? The leader growled. She turned slightly, her glowing hand brushing against Jace's arm. "Chosen who?" Her people looked at her in silence, then one by one, began to back away. The glow around her had become too strong. Something about her now frightened even them. She was no longer what they knew. Her blood had mixed with something different, something wild, unpredictable. Human dot without a word, they retreated, disappearing. Into the jungle like shadows. The room was quiet again. Jace let out a long breath and dropped the cutter. His hand was shaking. "You okay?" Ziri turned to him, her glow softening. "I am ... now." He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, he didn't see just an alien girl. He saw someone who had chosen to fight for him. Someone who had burned her past to build something new. He stepped closer. "You can go back now if you want." Her smile was quiet, sad, and full of fire. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because back there, I'd always be broken," she whispered. "But here, with you, I'm whole." Jace didn't know what to say. So he just stood with her, in the quiet, while the jungle healed itself outside. Ziri looked at the stars. Above, through the broken roof. She had lost her people, her place, and maybe her past. But she had found something stronger, and this time, she wasn't going to let it go. She had chosen, and she would never look back.